Welcome to Selling in the Motor Trade, in association with Automotive Management and Simco Training. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips, and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bokert, or some of you might already know me as Skippy. And firstly, I want to say thank you for taking the time to tune in. Hi, welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. It's my pleasure today to introduce you to the sales director of Nissan Motor Company in the UK. Nic Verneuil, am I pronounced that right?
Excellent, Simon.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, to start off with, if you've listened to this podcast before, Nic, we like to get to know our guests and we ask you a few questions to find out a little bit about them. So can I start off with a quick fire round of questions?
Absolutely.
I think I know the answer to this first one, but would you be more of a cold beer or a nice glass of wine?
Yeah, I thought this was a warm-up question, but you like to go straight in, don't you? Tough question to start.
Yeah.
I guess part of my family heritage would say wine.
Right.
I am French after all. That's why I'm a French passport holder. But the other part of my family, being married to a Brit, would be beer. So I'd say both.
Fair enough. Both.
Why choose?
Why choose? Fair enough. Are you more of a beach holiday or a city break person?
Again, I think I'm one of those indecisive personalities, or I like to get the best of both worlds. So I'd say San Sebastian, the mix of a beach city break. There you go.
Oh, very nice. That's both again. Now, is it going to be cat and dog together or more cat or dog or neither?
I'd say, so I had cats growing up, dogs and cats, actually, both pets. Being now, I guess, the ruler of my own household, I like to think. I'm not really, actually, as you probably figure out. But I haven't got time or space for a pet right now. The family doesn't. We've got a 2.5-year-old, so not comparing her to an animal, but she keeps us plenty busy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I know that one. I remember that one. So actually, I may have to change this question. I was going to say, are you more an Italian meal or a curry? Or being French, what would you prefer?
I think I've given this one a lot of thought, actually, over the years. I'm a big lover of pizza deep down. Okay. And a big lover of chicken tikka masala. So how about chicken pizza masala? Now that's an idea. Yeah, is that a French idea then? And it's my own.
You'll
take personal claim for that one.
That sounds fair.
Culinary innovation there.
That sounds good. And are you more of a really good movie or maybe a good book?
I think I used to be into movies. My attention span has dramatically reduced over the years. I think it's to do with digitalization and consuming so much news all the time.
Yeah.
I find it easier to stay attentive to a good book, actually. So I prefer books these days.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like a book now, and I think it's something to do with my age. Growing up, I would never have the time to read a book there. And I've got an 18-year-old and 15-year-old, and they're all YouTube. They just don't read at all. Now, this next one, people who don't know Nic, Nic comes from a marketing background. So I always like to ask this question for the marketing people. Are you an iPhone or Samsung person? Or should I say Android or iPhone?
I think iPhone, not for the lifestyle and having everything connected. But I have to say the intuitiveness of their design is for me still more advanced than Android. I find that their software logic, the devices, just very easy to grab and learn. So I like iPhone.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I've got to be honest, I'm with you. But I have an 18-year-old that loves to hate Apple, and it's Samsung all day long. And he's he's very marketing side of it and thinks, it's so much better there. But hey, listen, you can't argue with what Apple's built. They've built a brilliant business there. Yeah. Now, are you more early bird or a night owl?
Both. I like to stretch the boundaries. So early bird for work and night owl for play.
Nic, I think you got the most both on those questions ever. Okay? All those questions, you're all of the above, we should say. I love that. Now, listen, when we first met, I was really struggling to place your accent. It's a real mix, and I sort of struggled there. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your background?
Yeah, pretty international, I'd say. So I was born in France, as I've said. I'm a French passport holder. in the early 80s, 1980. I was raised in the US subsequently. Spent 12 years actually, being raised over there in South Carolina. So there's a bit of southern drawl there for you.
You did that well.
Yeah, I can put it on. Certainly, I do with my friends, but I don't. I try and tuck it away as much as possible when I'm in these types of environments. And I'm now married to a British wife, so I think I've got all these types of influences. We also lived in Canada to cap it off. So
yeah,
I think the accent is probably mid-Atlantic, is what I would say right now, somewhere there.
Yeah, I married a Brit as well, and I'm an Australian, but I've lost so much of my accent now. And I often say I've even bred to English people. I've been here so long, and it's quite funny. I speak to some people, and the first time we met you, someone else said something like this, and I found it quite funny, and you were so graceful in this. Sometimes people say to me, oh, I don't like the Australians, or I don't like they're not cultured, and not realising I'm Australian, or I'm married to a Scottish person, and they start talking about the Scottish. And there's one gentleman, bless him, he said, oh, the French, they just don't like us. And you were so graceful. You didn't at any point say, actually, I'm French. You just let it go straight over his head there. I quite like that. I really do like that. Now, listen, so you're the sales director for Nissan UK.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey? How did you get to that current position? How did you start in the motor trade?
I started right the way down, I guess, the corporate ladder with Nissan. Even down to when I was a student, I did a placement at Nissan North America, actually, in 2002, in the brand department. That's how I got started. And eventually I graduated in 2004 from a business school. I have a marketing degree to start with. And I wanted to go into marketing. And because I'd had that experience at Nissan, which was very good, I thought to myself, well, I'll apply for a full-time job. And I ended up getting a job, not in marketing, though, in network development. So dealer network development.
Right.
So what some other countries refer to as franchising. And that was my start, my real proper start. So trying to attract partners to the franchise, investors to the franchise, selling them the dream of what was Nissan, the product, the brand, the experience. I was also responsible for signage at the time, which was an interesting challenge because I guess beyond what I now know being a sales director and signage being seen as a tool for visual identity, the challenge I had at the time was to completely recompose the supply chain. So where do you source, your signs, your totems, your brand logos, that type of stuff. And it's funny because now, flash forward 17 years, I'm still drawing on the same competencies, except it's cars I move, it's not signs.
Yes.
But in between, so I did that stint in network development, then came to the UK for the first time in 2008. I was an area manager here in the UK for 2 years, then did some retail marketing, dealer marketing, tactical marketing, eventually graduated into more proper national marketing, went into product marketing, this time in Canada. That's how I ended up in Canada. And then slowly but surely progressed up the ranks. Ended up being in charge of cross-car line marketing for Europe, then customer experience for Europe, then marketing strategy for Europe and planning. And eventually I came back to the UK in 2017. In the last 5 years, I've been marketing director, as you've said, and now sales for the past nearly 2 years now. So pretty wide ranging in Europe, UK, North America, and a variety of sales and marketing roles.
Yeah, all over. I'm always keen to speak to someone else who's a foreigner living in this country. Where do you call home? Is here home? Is France home?
I guess I'm going through the stage now where I'm rediscovering what home is, but for a very long amount of time, there was no concept of home, really. There was home when I was a teenager, and that was the States. Then there was, home through my studies, which was Paris. Then there was, home in the UK, and then there was home in Canada. So it's not really a concept I assimilate with on a personal level. Now, being a father, it's very different, of course. So I think home will end up being where the kids, well, currently one daughter, but my wife's expecting a second. So we're both expecting a second.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I think it will end up being what they call home, really. But I'm comfortable anywhere. I think probably like you, Simon, when you've traveled about, you just learn to adapt, really. And that's what I like in life.
That adaptability in all parts of life. Well, this next question, this is, and if you've listened to the podcast before, and Nic, I know you have, this is a shameless plug for our first 90-day sales training program. But we say that in that first 90 days in business, we often learn things good and bad that last with us for the rest of our selling career, in my case, or in your corporate career. Is there anything you learned in the first 3 months that you think is relevant today for someone just starting in their business career as it was when you started?
I think I just use the word adaptability. I think that's key. I think that's probably the foundation I draw on the most. Probably it predates my professional life. In my case, it's really grounded in me as a human being because of having moved so much. But adaptability and intellectual curiosity, just wanting to learn. Learn from any situation. Approach anything as a learning opportunity. Engage. Talk to people. Listen to them. Debate. Argue, disagree, shout at each other, whatever it is, but don't be a passenger. I think that's the main thing. And if you approach life that way, I personally strongly believe that you'll get the most out of life.
I love that phrase, intellectual curiosity. Just be so curious, but and just ask questions all the time.
Yeah. And ask. And I said this to one of our graduate students last week. She was asking me for career advice, and I said, to me, it's deadly simple. Ask questions. Don't accept no. Usually when people say no, it's that they're struggling to find an acceptable answer. So challenge them and ask the why and the why and the why and the why. And when you get to that awkward moment where the other person no longer wants to engage, chances are you're just scratching at the surface of a business opportunity. There's probably something there that you've unearthed an opportunity. And then you just need to take risks and go for it.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. So can I ask you, I've always worked for a dealer and the dealer side of it. I've never worked for the manufacturer or the OEM. What's a typical working day look like for yourself as the sales director? For people who don't know that side of the business, what does the day look like for you?
A variety of things. No 2 days are alike, I guess, much like in the dealer world. Yesterday, for instance, I was looking back at calendar year 21 performance and the December close, which we just put the finishing touches on 4 or 5 days ago. So trying to understand what went well, what we could learn from, and build on that platform for this year. Today, a whole lot of stakeholder communications. Of course, there's this chat, but more widely, what are we going to be saying to our key partners to get them excited about the opportunity of today and this year? We have a lot of products being unveiled this year at Nissan, which we'll come back to later, but that's a fantastic opportunity. But I guess behind your question, there's also the more endemic question of, I guess, have working patterns changed with COVID? Of course they have. We've had to adapt. We've adopted flexible working, which has been a great boon, I have to say. Getting the most out of the resources, the talents, letting them somewhat work under their own terms whilst trying to keep the culture intact. So that's been some change. But of course, as well, what I would say, a sales director, any good sales director needs to be on the road, needs to be out there, needs to be pressing the flesh, needs to be seeing partners, customers, understanding what's working, what's not, looking for opportunities, striking new relationships. So no 2 days are alike, and that's the way I like it.
Yeah. And I've got to say, you really do know your dealer partners, your investors. We first met with one of our clients, and you knew the client so well. And this is not just because you had a relationship with that person. I just had that feeling that you really do care about the investors and their business there. It really shone through for me when we first met there.
Thank you. I try. I definitely try. And yes, I try and put myself in their shoes and think to myself, if I'd invested this amount of money to represent this brand, what is it I would be trying to achieve? And how can I help that? And maybe I can help them even think bigger in some cases. And the event we were at, I think without revealing their identity and their name, I do seriously think that they are one of those partners that always looks for that added layer of performance and added layer of opportunity.
Yeah, and they really do. So can I ask you then, what's been one of your greatest days in the job? What's a great satisfaction day for you in the job?
I think I'm eternally, I guess it comes with being intellectually curious, eternally unsatisfied, but positively. I have a positive mental attitude. always think that tomorrow will be a better day than today. Sorry. And it's not to suggest that today is not rewarding. Today is very rewarding, but I always want to think that there's more to come. So what's been the greatest day for me? I would say any day where we've achieved something. Obviously, you come out on a high. Look, here's a plug. In December, we hit a 6.2% market share. Now, we certainly never planned for that. We executed diligently our plan, and it turned out that the market did something we weren't expecting. Other brands pulled back. Maybe they held back some registrations for the quarter that we're in. But lo and behold, we ended up with a better result than we'd planned.
6.2 is strong, Nic.
6.2 for Nissan in the UK is very strong. And look, it was that 1 month, and I'm not going to say it's in any way sustainable because we've achieved it once. But when something like that happens, you think to yourself, "Wow, we've achieved something," and then that just gives you the confidence to keep trying. So, what's been the greatest day? I'd say tomorrow is the greatest day, but to really believe that, you need to obviously enjoy every single success along the way.
Again, this might be a thick question again from my point of view, because I'd like to say I'm just a car salesperson at heart, and what drives me every day is when you sell that car and you make that commission, you make that money, and as a sales manager, you look at the bottom line. Coming from the OEM side of it, what drives you every day? It's not directly the profit, I'm guessing. Is it that number? Is it that market share? Or what drives you?
I think me personally, I think it's just learning, always learning. That's what drives me. I don't know. That's the way I am. I don't know how my parents got me to be the way I am, but I just thrive on experience and thrive on culture and engagement. But I'm not a money chaser. I don't do things for commercial gain. Now, of course, it's great to be rewarded for what you do, but it's not the fundamental driver of what I try and achieve. I think most OEMs, if you were to ask them today, what is it that drives them? Increasingly and decreasingly, it can't just be about new car sales. We know that TIVs are total industry volumes all over around the world are coming down. They are increasingly expensive to penetrate because our products have increasingly an amount of technology, digital technology, electric powertrains. They're more expensive to manufacture. As a result, we can't afford to have levels of excess capacity that we simply dump into the marketplace where we don't have enough customers. That type of destructive behavior is simply nothing any brand could afford right now. So I think what you would hear from most manufacturers is that they're deeply convinced and deeply focused on the customer experience and the quality of the customer relationship and maximizing customer satisfaction in order to breed repeat business, in order to drive ancillary business, whether it's after sales, whether it's whether it's financing, whatever it is. But deep down, it's about caring for your customer. And dare I say, OEMs, I think, probably need to learn somewhat from retailers in that space, because this has been, the bloodstream for retailers for a very long time has been, how do you satisfy your customers and keep them loyal? I think historically, manufacturers have said they cared. Maybe deep down, they didn't quite care as much as they said. Or let's put it another way around, the manufacturing agenda sometimes got the better of the sales and marketing agenda. And there was simply too much product to go around to actually steer the course and stay focused on the customer experience.
Listen, you're a motor trader then in the motor industry for a long time. To lighten it up a bit, have you ever tried to escape the motor trade, or is it in your blood?
I think it's in my blood. I didn't actively try to escape, but I was offered opportunities to. Again, in sort of near fields, but more distant fields as well. Especially because of my background in marketing and customer experience and, I guess, commercial value chain management. It's pretty transferable into other industries, so I have had opportunities. But no, I've stayed where I am. I'm happy where I am. I think because of the amount of change in our industry, because of the amount of opportunities, there's no real reason to look elsewhere if those opportunities are appealing enough. And deep down, I am a car guy. I'm not a product guy. I'm the son and the product of a tire engineer who worked for 40 years at Michelin. So I was born and bred through the Michelin way.
Okay.
So I've been in and around cars for most of my life, and I quite like it.
Okay. Well, listen, as your position as a sales director, you must see great dealerships and good dealerships. Can I ask you, in your opinion, our job, I always think that I would love to get some of our clients and sit them in a car beside me for a month or two, because they'd learn so much. You must have the same thing, because you can't take Chris Wiseman, for example, into Robert Forrester's business and vice versa. But sometimes I think, wouldn't they both learn so much from each other there? So can I ask you, from your position, what separates the great dealer from the good?
I think it's having skin in the game. And actually, I'm probably plugging one of your other podcasts that I listen to. But I listened to one and watched one with intent, because I thought it was very, very good. The observation around having skin in the game.
That would have been Frank from Melbourne, I think it was.
Was it? Yeah, I forget the gentleman's name. But yeah, you're right. He was from Melbourne. He was talking about how arguably family dealerships and family businesses are structurally more how can I put it, predisposed to having skin in the game, and maybe large PLCs. Then again, I would say, and I would counter that somewhat, because I don't think it's all structure. Because I think there are PLCs, like you just used Robert Forster as an example. There are PLCs that actually have a lot of skin in the game and are looking to acquire scale and therefore do things properly and execute properly. So I think it's about that. It's about actually genuine care. And how do you instill that culture of caring and learning and monitoring customers and listening to insights and acting on them quickly? If you're able to do that in a PLC environment, fair play. It's a challenge, because through PLCs, you can end up with a lot of rigor to cope with the regulation, and sometimes that rigor and that regulation stands in the way of maybe just listening and acting in an agile way. That's what we try and tackle at Nissan. I think we're aware of the pitfalls when you get a bit complacent and you start caring about things that are more political in their nature than maybe just the customer. So I would say that avoid politics, focus on the result, look at your data, listen to the customer, and act on those insights. Really, not much more than that. And yeah, as Frank from Melbourne was saying, family and businesses with a lot of history tend to have that down pat.
They do. Yeah, they do. Now, moving forward, we all know that the customer's buying journey starts online. People often know more about the car than what our salespeople do. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but that's just a fact sometimes. So with that in mind, is there a place for a car salesperson in the future? Or is it just going to be click and collect? Or is it going to be clicks and bricks? What does the future look like, do you think?
I wish I knew. I don't think there is one future, if I'm honest. We often get carried away with trends and insights, and digitalization has been a buzzword around us for 5, 6, 10 years maybe. It certainly has transformed the engagement with customers, OEMs and retailers and dealers. It means that we have a wealth of opportunity now to interact with customers on their own terms. It used to be that we had, and I'm still from this marketing school, what you used to call above the line channels and below the line channels, and above the line to drive awareness, consideration, and below the line to drive conversion. It's all meshing now. I guess audiences on YouTube, which is a digital TV channel, for lack of a better description, actually surpass audiences on linear TV. If you want to book media today, you can book it on video on demand. You don't have to book linear as well. So all the channels are becoming digitalized in whichever way, which is great, because it means that we can have one-to-one contact if we so choose. Of course, we can continue to wish for the mainstream, out-of-home sponsorship type of marketing as well, to communicate with large audiences. And I think it's about identifying what's right for your business at whichever point in time. When it comes to buying cars, I think for me, what's important is getting the balance between your online and your offline experience right. As you say, a lot of customers now have a lot of information which they glean online. They tend to come into dealerships purely to transact. They know everything there is to know about the product. They don't always need a product presentation. They don't always need a test drive. Some customers want a delivery at home. Some don't. Some of them relish this personal connection with the salesman or salesperson in the showroom. I think it's about trying to cater to all these options, really. How do you set yourself up to have all these offerings available so that you can draw them out depending on the case? And how do you avoid being rigid to one scenario? You just need to let the customer roam free, I think, and act on their terms. And that takes a lot of confidence in yourself and your ability to adapt. I'd say there isn't a single way, and I don't think there will ever be a single way. And I'm glad that there won't ever be a single way, because if there was only that one way, I think the world would be a very sad place, if I'm honest.
That's true. So moving forward, do you see the salesperson still a fundamental part of the process?
I completely. I think the salesperson for me is the cornerstone of a relationship. It's the building block of a future relationship with that business. It's the first human touch point with our brand, Nissan. If you go into a Nissan dealer and you interact with any salesperson, that's how I see them, the first human touch point. But they're also a key cog that lays the foundation to the relationship and then often hands off to the service receptionist, who then, with a team of technicians and everyone else in the business, will look after that customer for the whole ownership journey. And then hopefully you do that well enough that the customer at the end of the PCP agreement, if it's a PCP under which they've bought, they're still there, they return and they buy again. I'm a big believer that, yes, there's a lot of passionate car fans out there that always want that latest product, but there are increasingly minority. Most people look at our product as a utilitarian. I hate the word commodity, but it is true. We are being commoditized, and we need to recognize sometimes that as long as we provide a good service and we provide a product that is going to get the customer from A to B in a nice cabin with a nice level of comfort and convenience with technology, then we'll be all right. So let's not get carried away. I think for me, if there was one big learning curve from the whole lockdown, succession of lockdowns that we've had, we did an exercise. I was still marketing director at the time when we had the first lockdown. And we had to do an exercise at the request of the finance community because we were arguing that we needed to invest to keep building the order bank and keep building proximity with the customer base. And the sad and honest reality is that our manufacturing plants had to close for health and safety reasons, but also because there was no sourcing of parts or anything. So we were being asked, okay, what should we be maintaining and what should we be shutting down? And in doing that exercise in marketing, we had to actually rationalize our marketing activity from A to Z and think back. Is this essential? Is this essential? Is this essential? Is this essential? And when you do that, you actually establish what is really, really important. And, what we brought it back down to is the fundamental purpose that we serve as a brand and as a business in this trade is personal mobility. And the good thing, being a bit academic and having studied marketing, it brought me back to the Maslow pyramid of needs. And actually, the great thing is that mobility is at the very, very bottom of that pyramid. It is one of the foundational rights humans have and that we expect. It's just above basically health and feeling protected. So, I think we were fortunate in the sense that when we established that, and then we thought to ourselves, okay, what we need to do is we need to make sure we continue to offer our customers mobility services. We need to work with our dealer network to make sure that service operations remain open to keep people mobile, et cetera, et cetera. We really radically transformed how we were going to market, and we stopped worrying so much about marketing the next new Nissan. And we were worrying about how do we market the experience and how do we market what we do and how do we market the service. And I think we learned a lot as a business during that time, bringing it back down to, what is essential? And essential was mobility, really.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because it brings me on to a conversation about EV because moving forward, an electric motor is an electric motor. So what makes Nissan different to a Tesla or the Porsche Taycan or something like that. So moving to the future, you were the pioneers of
Yeah.
EV technology with the Leaf. Well, the Leaf, how long ago was that?
That was 10 years now, over 10
Wow.
years. I think
Wow.
11. And
Okay.
I tell you what, actually, our history, I learned this through my time at Nissan. I didn't realize our very first venture into electric was in 1947.
I never knew that. 1947.
1947. I think we were one of the pioneering brands at that time. Now, obviously, it didn't scale. And we then returned subsequently to the electric, apologies, in 2010.
Yep.
With the launch of the Nissan Leaf.
Okay.
And Leaf was new to the world and its concept. At the time, there was a handful of small electric vehicles that were in existence.
Mm-hmm.
The Leaf was the very first attempt at a mainstream
mass production
yeah. C-segment vehicle. And 10 years on, it's still selling very well. In fact, we sold 1,500 last month. But it goes to show, in my eyes, if your product is engineered well, and I think there's a key point here, because to come back to the experience side of things, I think what you need is excellent levels of product satisfaction as mm-hmm. much as experience satisfaction. So what we've been fortunate to deliver with the Leaf through a lot of focus is excellent levels of customer satisfaction. The durability, the dependability, the quality, the reliability, all these indicators have been exceedingly high. And I remember for a very long time, and I think it's still the case, I haven't checked recent results, but we've operated at 97, 98% of customer satisfaction with mm-hmm. the Leaf. So when you have that amount of product recognition, quality recognition, I think it's very easy for businesses, as long as it's known that product is that good, very easy to attract new business. But as I say, to keep that business that you attract, you need to focus on the experience. And that's where your value chain, your dealer network comes into play. And then the brand as well, to live up to the expectation. So yeah, it's been a great ride. Now we've gone from being relative pioneers, I should say, yep. to amongst the crowd, let's be honest, mm-hmm. Because every OEM is now in this space. And that's what we've been thinking about long and hard at Nissan is, how do we make sure that our next step is the best step? Mm-hmm.
Use that experience you've learned along the way. You must have so much that, from an engineering point of view, that Nissan must know.
And from a data point of view, because these vehicles they're software on wheels, really, aren't they? So mm-hmm. we have so many data points on what people do in these cars, mm-hmm. how do they drive them, what features do they use, how regularly, to do what. Also, the integration with the chargers, the data protocols, how frequently do they charge, where. We pass that on to our partners. Mm-hmm. Where should they put their charging points, blah, 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 blah. So it's a whole ecosystem of, learning about customer behavior. And you're right, we have 10 years of it under our belts. So, our engineering teams all over the world, mainly in Japan, which is the hub for this mm-hmm. competency. They have a tremendous amount of knowledge here, which we're putting to the benefit of our next product. So we're currently taking orders for our iconic flagship EV crossover called the Nissan Ariya. Mm-hmm. And that's the best of both worlds. It's the 10-year heritage of Leaf mm-hmm. meshed into, I guess, our other calling card in the automotive business.
SUV crossover, yeah.
Exactly. And that's what the Ariya is about.
Hey, listen, this is something you probably can't answer, and I understand if you can't answer it, but maybe I'll say it for you. There's another manufacturer. We won't name him. It wouldn't be fair to say, but they don't have a dealer network. They produce electric vehicles, and the man who owns it also flies rockets, but we won't name who they are. But I just don't get this. I want to get your views on the marketing side of it, because that particular car, I've driven it, and I wouldn't say it's the best built car in the world. I don't think the quality of it's the best, but from a marketing point of view, they seem to do really well. Their market share, if you look at their market cap, it's very, very good. I just want to get your view on it. It's surely the engineering that Nissan and other traditional manufacturers, at the end of the day, surely that has to shine through. Or do customers just put up with the brand? What's more important, the brand or the engineering? I don't know if you can answer that question.
I think both are critically important. I look at these things as almost life cycle stage or life stages in company history. I would never critique, let's name them Tesla. I think they have been a boon to most of us, if not all of us.
And again, that's my personal view. Having driven one, I just wasn't impressed. But it's
no. But I'll be honest with you. I've been inside them. I haven't been all that wowed by the quality of the fit and finish, and that's often what they're critiqued on.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I guess they've weighed up whether that's truly what people buy. And they've taken a view that in order to launch themselves as the brand, maybe where they should focus is somewhere else. And they focused on the range, on the design, on having SUV body types, on data connectivity, on having online sales channels. So they've looked at it in a completely different way. But I think what will be interesting to see is the Tesla of 10 years, if they are still around in 10 years' time, which honestly, given where their market capitalization is going, I don't think that's a risk anymore. It long was, but I think they're now a staying force. But what will that look like? Will they still be this new, novel, always pushing the boundary type of player? Or are they going to slowly but surely want to become mainstream? Are they going to be the Ford of EVs? If you think about their heritage, they're an American company. They've leapfrogged all the American OEMs. Maybe it was strategic on the entire U.S. Economy part. Maybe it was a bet that they placed on a player to push the game on and to almost beyond automotive manufacturing. I think they have played a role in reshaping also the financial markets. The way businesses are now valued, you touched on it, has nothing to do with balance sheet. It's got nothing to do with balance sheet.
Not at all, is it?
Entirely to do with future potential and size of your audience. And so it's almost become a game of communicate, grow your audience, and hope that through the financial valuation that you're going to acquire, you can then drive the scale to justify that valuation.
Not just OEMs like Tesla, but I suppose there's the Cavanas of the world, the Kazoos in the UK of the world. It's similar valuations. You can't value it on a times EBITDA or something like that. It just goes out the window, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But I think I'll come back to the positive of that because we comment a lot on it in a negative way sometimes, through conversation. But positive is it's forced us as OEMs to engineer better products, to innovate, battery range, for instance. All of a sudden they've raised the game. We've had to all push for more battery range. Software connectivity, same thing. Even the likes of Kazana or Kazoo, they're innovating there, and we learn from that as OEMs, and we try and onboard some of these practices. Retailers do the same. So we've got so much to learn from each other, and I think they're learning from us in the same way. And that's good. That's healthy. That's the whole point of competition. So let's not shy away from it. But hopefully, we at Nissan can learn what we need to learn, adapt it to what we do, and continue, being a sustainable business.
There's that word adaptability again.
Yeah.
Adapt. So from a dealer's point of view, how is the dealer network going to adapt to maybe the challenges, is that the right word, faced in the after-sales side of regarding EV technologies? The EVs, I understand they're going to be less servicing requirements. Is that right? What impact is that going to have on the dealer network going forward?
So after sales, for obvious reasons, is less my area of expertise, but I do understand things like you in that this is an increasingly technological product, decreasingly mechanical, decreasingly faces the risk of reliability issues, because mechanical parts are known or prone to fail more often than technological parts, or technological parts can be repaired over the air and don't require a service. So yes, I think all my colleagues in after sales know this for a fact, that the revenue sources of after sales business is being disrupted, and it's for all of them and us to recognize how we can offset that. EVs, because of their nature, do provide other opportunities through connectivity, through data. So a lot of us are focused on how do you harness the power of that data? How do you get? It was interesting. I think it was yesterday. Stellantis and Amazon announced a joint venture or of some description, onboard software connectivity stored in AWS. So I think OEMs need to look at all these things. Retailers need to look at all these things. I know some of our dealers in our network are actually scaling up their data competency, which I applaud. Oftentimes, dealers will think that's for the OEM to do, but I think dealers can also certainly do a job of betting and investing on customer data. And I think that's very important. You got relationships with energy houses as well, revenue sharing on power. That could be an area of opportunity. So there's lots. I think it's just adapt again. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to think differently. Just recognize the risk and then think, how do you offset it?
Okay. Thinking more short term now, we know the semiconductors crisis. It's a global situation that affected not just the motor industry, it's computers and TVs and everything. But we seem to be hit hardest because the amount of semiconductors we use is at 300, 350 a car, something like that. What impact do you think it's going to have in the medium term on the UK market? Less new cars sold today means there's less used cars in the future, the impact on the vehicle park and servicing. What do you think a dealer needs to do to navigate the short and medium term with the semiconductor shortage?
I think it's possibly very different by brand. So I'll speak to what we're doing at Nissan. I think the challenge we've all faced over the past year has been the reliability and the accuracy of the information that we're able to provide to our dealers for them to pass on to the customers on an individual case basis, because for every customer, it's their car and it's their car that matters, and it's delivery of that car.
Yep.
And how do you do that at scale? How do you best arrange that information when, let's be honest, our factories don't have reliable information on parts coming into them?
Yeah.
Different OEMs will have different systems, will have more or less end-to-end tracking of parts or not, will have different relationships with their suppliers. Some will operate with tier one relationships and expect those first tier suppliers to manage everything else. And others will go down into tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four, and therefore will have a different sort of calibration process. At Nissan, we've had a long history of managing supply chains, also with the alliance, and we've got the support of our partner Renault and Mitsubishi. That gives us clout in negotiation with the supply base, and that's possibly given us a little bit more stability, I guess, in finding the information than others. Although we have some competitors who have managed it differently and very well as well. But the focus we've had in the UK has been in really just having frequent and transparent exchange with the dealer network, and recognizing that at the end of the day, most of the questions that come to us come through them. And if they don't have the information we can give them, then the whole chain is going to be disrupted. So the system is we have a engineering system like most people that turns into a sales system and interfaces with the dealer network, and that's where they see their ordering information. But unfortunately, the reality is that system has been devoid of any purpose for a year, because all the information we give is actually outside the system, because that's how we get the information. And the information is changing so quickly that it can't ever be captured in the system. So I guess what I'm saying is it's human interface that has replaced what historically has been a system that was very regimented. And the people who deserve the most credit, I think, are actually my area managers and the dealers in their ability to maintain contact and to keep level-headed and, to manage the customer experience. So we have regular, monthly cascades to my team. Oftentimes we have videos to the network. We have one on Monday. We try and give them the best information we have, but I think we've all accepted over the past year that today's information could be expired by next week. And there's no point being angry about it or frustrated. Let's just accept it and try and deal with it, you know? So that's what it is. There's no magic to it, I think. It's about attempting, stay honest with each other.
Yeah.
Attempt to maintain contact, and worry about the customer at the end of the day. And we've done a few things. Of course, we've had to. We've introduced new goodwill programs. So if you're a customer at Nissan today and your car incurs a 6-week delay over its initially estimated lead time, that qualifies you for a goodwill program. So we've got measures like that in place in the event of a delay, unforeseen delay, to help the customer. But yeah, we're doing an honest job. We have a large order bank, 30,000 orders right now in the system, undelivered. And I'm pleased to say we're not seeing much decay from it. So whatever we're doing seems to be working.
I think most customers are realistic now. They've read in the newspaper and the TV. They tried to buy a TV and couldn't get it. So I think keeping the customer informed has got to be key, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Just letting them know. And again, it's when you say it's tier 1, 2, and 3. Sometimes from the dealer world, we just forget that or don't even understand that it's not just Nissan. It's Nissan supplier.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the issue, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So listen, moving forward then, I want to get your views on mobility. You mentioned that before. And again, I can see adaptability is going to come in here. But does the future, do people want to own cars? Or is there going to be a subscription car service? What's going to win out in that? Is it ownership or usage that people really want? Do you think?
I don't think it's very clear. I don't think there'll ever be one answer to it. Well, at least not foreseeably in the future. Being a marketeer at the heart, I came back into sales a couple of years ago, firmly believing in some of these trends that were going to upend the world as we knew it. And I think the last couple of years have brought me back to the harsh, cold reality of there are so many customer segments out there. Not everyone wants the new latest thing. Yes, you always have those innovators, those pioneers who are thinking, I want to flip my car and I want to run a sports car in the weekend and a family car at the week and God knows what. And there's a few of these people, but they're minority. Now, that said, the younger generations, we all see this, are decreasingly taking the driver's license, possibly are less and less interested in owning a car. And are saying right now that all they want is mobility and they want the flexibility. And ideally, they would want one subscription that actually would cut across multiple types of transport, not just cars and public buses and rail and all that type of stuff. I think it will be interesting to see what that generation says. And I'm not too far removed from that generation. As I said, I'm from the early 80s. It'll be interesting to see what that generation says when they get to my age or my life stage, which is one of having children, and whether you actually have the same reasoning. Because I think there is something fundamental that happens when you do become, you have a family, is all of a sudden the prospect of owning is a lot more attractive than the prospect of leasing all the time or flipping things. And, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of commercial relationships with disruptors that have become subscription arms now. And they said to me, even through their data, they could see that it was very specific segments, customer segments and population segments, and even geography segments sometimes that were attracted to their model. And there was a break point in the transition to family stage. And what they were hearing through their data, basic things, obvious things maybe for fathers, things like child seats. If you no longer own your car and you're potentially going to want to flip it every now and again, what are you going to do with the child seat? Are you going to go through the hassle of taking it out and into the other car all the time? And I know all too well how much of a hassle that is in my everyday. So there's basic things like that, which I think are going to stand in the way of this concept of people flipping in and out of cars all the time. And I think there will continue to be a substantial portion of the market that will be attracted to ownership. I could be completely wrong, but we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
See, I heard a man at the National Automotive Dealers Association say, sure, I might only use my toothbrush for 1% of the day, but I'm not ready to share it with everyone else. And I think that sometimes, and you're right, it's about that age thing, because my car is not just a way for me to get mobility. Actually, it's stuff I keep in the boot. I keep stuff in the car all the time. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Definitely.
Going forward.
Now, I mean, we have to recognize there are bigger forces at play as well that are going to impact maybe our lifestyles. Climate change. What's that going to do? The amount of cars on the road, the congestion in the cities, all that type of stuff. There's a lot of policy that's conspiring against automotive right now. Let's say. So let's see how this all shakes out. I think the point is adapt, be open to change, don't fear it, relish it. But I do think that ownership has a lot of positive value to it.
Yeah. I suppose we're being intellectually inquisitive of what's happening there, curious of what's happening. I love that phrase. Okay. So who in the business world inspires you then, Nic? Is it a particular person that influenced you in your early career, or in the business world, anyone that you really look up to?
I think it's a lot to do with brands for me,
okay.
more so than individuals.
It's the marketing guy coming out in you again.
Yeah, probably. A couple of brands that I've historically I've spoken to Michelin already because of how I was brought up, and they're a fascinating brand to me. I hail from their global headquarters, so it's my hometown. So it is part of my roots, I guess. But it's fascinating to me that a tire company, of all things, could have unearthed what is commonly recognized as one of the most iconic brand logos, almost on a kilter with Coca-Cola. It's crazy. You go into villages in Africa and people know the Michelin Man. That's one thing. And they've diversified from tires into maps and to restaurant guides and the Michelin stars.
Michelin stars, of course. That's what I was first thinking. Tires and Michelin stars. How did that ever happen? But
exactly. I know the history. I won't bore you with that. But anyway, so that I find fascinating. Brands that are able to do that and straddle so many areas and still stand for something. And then I look, into the more nascent brands. Here in the UK, I think BrewDog is doing a fantastic job on a brand front. They're being criticized on the management side of things, and I won't comment on that because I wouldn't be able to. But on the brand front, the engagement and their experience of what they're doing is phenomenal. I was at their hotel not too long ago in December in Manchester, and highly recommend it to all the listeners. If you're ever in Manchester, try the BrewDog Hotel. You'll get an idea for the physical experience and the sensual experience that the brand is looking for.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Now, also, whose podcast do you seek out or search for, or YouTube?
Apart from yours, Simon?
Oh, good answer. We like that. Thank you, Nic.
We said at the top, didn't we? Beer or wine? I went for the ultimate cop out. I went for the both. In actual fact, I think I'm slightly more of a wine man than beer. And there's for any wine lovers out there, I highly recommend a podcast called I Will Drink to That. I'll Drink to That. By Levi Dalton. And it's fantastic. And it's how I spend my time when I've got an hour to spare. I turn that on and it is great.
I know you like your wines there. The first time we met, it was at the Beaujolais evening or event or something like that. And for the listeners there, Nic turned around and said, "You're going to taste banana in this." I thought, banana in wine? And I tell you what, he was right. You definitely know your wines there. I learned a lot that night, not just about the motor trade, but wines. Listen, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I've loved this so much. Listen, our listeners, if they want to reach out to you, are you on LinkedIn, social media? How would people reach out to you, Nic?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best channel, of course. So that's simple. My first name, Nicolas, no H, Nicolas, and my surname, Verneuil. Very good pronunciation, by the way, Simon. Verneuil.
You've been polite again, so.
But I welcome any contact, really. So feel free.
Okay, Nic, and thank you so much for being so open what's happening with Nissan and getting your views on the future. And I'm sure we put the world to right there. I hope the listeners really enjoyed it. I'm sure they have. Thank you again.
Thank you, Simon.
That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, simcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bokert through LinkedIn. Thank you.